Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation sales and marketing success stories. I'm Jennifer Carpus Romaine, Executive Director at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, which is a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals in transportation and logistics. And today I'm very excited to have on the show Eileen Curran. She is the newest TMSA board member and a longtime supply chain marketing professional. So welcome to the show, Eileen. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Jen.
Of
Excited to be
course.
here.
I'm excited to have you as well. You've had such a long career in the supply chain in this industrial space. So tell us about your experience.
Well, I mean, it did, as you said, it's long, so I'm a little older than some of the TMSA members. But I did start right out of college in the industrial space as inside sales support. So that's why I've always been really connected to sales. And that connection to like big projects that made my big thing is silent, but a beneficial difference in the lives of people was really intriguing to me, which is why, as my career advanced, I kept gravitating towards these types of roles. Eventually, I started at entry level marketing and packaging, which grew, and ultimately into the supply chain, which is a natural progression, right? Packaging and the supply chain, logistics. I'm just a big believer in sustainable value, and I believe the industrial market space provides that to every human on the planet. So no matter what we're doing, we're being touched by those industrial marketers and sales professionals.
Awesome. And what about logistics has kept you engaged, kept you wanting to stay in this very interesting, fast paced, always changing industry?
Yeah, I know it, right? Everyone says that. Everyone says that what keeps you engaged is they say it because it's true. There's absolutely nothing boring about the supply chain.
Mhm.
Absolutely nothing. Every day there's something different, not just in your personal day-to-day work, but in the world impacting shipments, no matter what happens, whether it's weather, global events. And as everyone knows, it's been especially lively the past few years, especially the past 4 years. So there's also been and will continue to be an exceptional amount of opportunity in the supply chain. And it's unique to this industry because we're in the beginning stages of true data mining and collection. And I think that's really, truly exciting as a marketer because that just creates so many more opportunities to learn more about our customer base, to learn more about global shipments and all of that cool stuff. So it's been, I mean, as you know, it's been a lot of adjustment on a day to day basis, but our change muscle is really strong now.
Mhm. And would you recommend this industry for people starting out in their career, especially more in the creative space? I know we've talked about this in the past. Like, I went to journalism school. I was always more of a writer, and I never thought, like, I always just wanted to write for the New York Times. Like, that was it. You want to
Mhm.
do that stuff. You don't think about the industrial spaces. But in my whole career path through journalism, through marketing, through now TMSA and all these things, this industry is not just for, the supply chain leaders or production lines or any of those things. Like, how do you encourage younger people to come into this space?
It's so interesting because this is just, like I said, it's like a silent space. Like nobody really understands it. Nobody really knows like how integrated into our everyday lives it is. And also it's kind of, to use the word, it's not really truly sexy in a lot of ways. It's not super exciting. It's difficult to explain to your friends like what you're doing. It's a lot more exciting to be at one, maybe a more of a popular everyday brand. But going back to the sustainability of it all, there's also a security in what we do. Like we will continue to provide value no matter what trends come and go because it's something that's necessary. So when it comes to new students or anything like that, we're engaged with junior achievement a lot. So you start talking at a younger age to these students, and they're always like, well, I want to be a TikTok influencer, or I want to do all this kind of stuff. And that's great. And you can do all those things within this industry, but it's about exposure to what this is. It's about exposing the younger generation to like what it is we do on a day-to-day basis. And I think COVID provided that inflection point of information to the everyday American about what it is that we do on a regular basis. And that made it a lot easier. It made it a lot easier to explain what the supply chain is when people are complaining about toilet paper and all of that good stuff. But when it comes to the, younger students, and when you talk to college kids who are deciding which go, I love the collaborative spirit of the industrial space. And I'll talk about that with TMSA too, always. Like, we are just a very giving industry. Like, we're just very much like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're small but mighty teams. We need to learn from each other. We need to share information. We're stronger together. And that's really been my path my whole career too, like whether it's packaging or supply chain. So I encourage especially those newbies to kind of be in this space, because there's a lot of opportunity to learn. And when you learn, you make a lot of mistakes. And it's a really compassionate industry for that, because it changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what I like to tell individuals is, if you want something that's not boring, if you want something that you're really going to become a generalist in a lot of ways, because you have to do a lot of different things for your organization, this is the place to be, because you're going to learn how it all works and how it all integrates into your business strategy.
Absolutely. We have so much disruption here that it's like you mess up, you carry on, you keep going. I love when you were like, oh, talking to the younger generations, like they want to be like TikTok stars and stuff. You're like, you can do that here too. I learned that last spring. So like 6 months ago now, I had to speak to my niece's like third grade career day. And I really didn't know how to approach that at all. And I feel like I had to do it for my one niece, and then I'm sure I'm going to have to do it this year because I have another niece in third grade, and then my son Monroe will be in third grade next year. So I feel like hopefully by the time he gets to the career day, I will have mastered how to pitch supply chain in my job specifically to third graders. But my sister was there too as her kid. And by like halfway through the sessions, she just started screaming at the children that I'm on YouTube. And so then that is what brought the hordes of children. So like right now we are on YouTube in this interview. So like you can in fact achieve those goals of being a YouTube star, whatever that means. And of all the things I do, that's what they get most excited about. But it's, yes, like I didn't think about how important education and quality information and messaging and all of the things that we care about as I started in journalism, but as marketing, as salespeople, all of those things are critically important to industrial spaces. And I would say when I started in journalism, why I came to the industrial side, because I felt like writing to those people and the stories and the trends and the things I was covering was almost more important to their day-to-day life than if you're, a community writer or something, or like following the bigger stuff, like the more mainstream stuff, if you will, because it's so important. And I found a home here, and you can still spin those fun elements, those different elements into that, and help them understand how awesome it is to be here. So
exactly. And since the beginning of my career decades ago, it's gotten a lot cooler. The people have gotten a lot cooler. I'll be completely transparent. We used to go to trade shows and you'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person here who like looks like me, or all this kind of stuff. And now, I mean, you have podcasters, you have Blythe, who is like a dynamo. You have Kara, who's a published author. You have all of these people. You have, different podcasts that are speaking to thousands of people on the daily about our topic. So you don't feel like you have to justify why you're here as much, which makes it a lot easier to focus on the important stuff. And I thank all the way cooler people than me who are doing all those cool things, because it elevates all of us, right? It makes it a lot easier for us to say to the young kids, hey, you can have your own podcast. You can be a trailblazer. You can then speak at major events and really share your passion with people. And then in effect, enhance our industry as well, because your perspective matters.
Your perspective matters. I think that's one of the most important things that it took me a really long time to learn, because when I came into industrial spaces, and also when I worked on the tech side of things, I am married to an engineer. So I hear things all the time. I don't understand holistically what they all mean. Or on the tech side, I don't know how to build the software. So my perspective is always so different in those conversations. And for a long time, I felt like stupid because I didn't understand But then I was like, wait, I have a different perspective. And if we're
Mhm.
selling to laymen who need us to explain things in ways that they understand, my
Yep.
perspective actually becomes really important. And that took
Mhm.
me a really long time to understand. And so then when I was building like marketing strategies, sales strategies, I did think about, okay, do I understand what we're saying here? Because if I don't understand it,
Yeah.
the people we're selling to, the people we're connecting to, our prospects, our customers, they might not understand it either. And so that's was when I realized that my perception, my voice really mattered.
Yeah, diversity of thought is essential because we first started, it was B2B, 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 and it still is. You still continue to see that language. But with the digital age came that it's like the great leveler, and now it's B2B to C. There's a consumer at the end of every conversation, to every marketing line, to every sales pitch. And that consumer doesn't always look like us. So it's really important to have that kind of depth of perspective. So I think it's really a special time to be in industrial. And I would encourage students for that reason alone. Like you can, your voice can make a difference.
Mhm. Yeah, even now, like I love talking to people and like they understand concepts that we don't understand. They know technology, what's coming, what's working, what's don't, and also just what they care about. Like I know I taught like social media marketing at a community college for a while, and I would hear the students come in and they care so much about what companies are doing, how they give back to their communities,
Mm-hmm.
their employee engagement, and all of that stuff, which are things that I didn't care about as much when I came in. I was like, do I have a job? Check. Okay. Like,
I
go.
didn't think we were allowed to have it matter when
Right.
we started. It was like, you have a job, check. It's the Don
Yeah.
Draper. Your paycheck is your thank you moment. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I even remember like getting my first job offer and calling my sister, and she's like, do you have benefits? I'm like, I don't know. I have a job. And so I love that these new generations are coming in and they are caring about so much. And so it allows even these like theoretically boring spaces, even though we all know that they're not boring, to really showcase themselves in a different way while still putting out the work and still doing. And I agree. Like, I think the supply chain became, it's always been important, but people realize how important because of COVID and the loss of what they considered their norm of when they're able to get the stuff that they want. And so, what does that
Exactly.
mean to them? And
Mm-hmm.
so, it kind of opened a lot of doors. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a tough time for us, but a really important time for the industry because it gave us a lot of opportunity.
And you listed a lot of people that like you really respect in the industry and you talk about how cool they are, but you're cool, number one. And two, you were recently named one of our brand innovators at TMSA in our Mount Mover Award category. And so you are doing great things. You are showing up in the industry and trying new things. What does this award mean to you? And what are some of those brand innovation pieces that you've really kind of put out there that you're most proud of?
Well, I mean, when you're in this group and in this industry, you're probably not the smartest person in the room. So any recognition by a group of peers like TMSA that I admire to the nth degree is special. Like, so this award means a lot because they're people I genuinely respect and I think are cool, and so that's exciting. And we did a lot of really good hard brand work about integrating a bunch of different brands. Unifying a lot of the language, unifying internally and externally. So I love when everybody kind of plays together and starts singing from the same song sheet and doing it in a really collaborative way. So there's buy-in. And to the cool part, a lot of these brands need to evolve and to be refreshed and to feel stronger in the marketplace and more modern. So that's what we spent a bulk of the year doing. And I always feel, I mean, I'm very biased, so I always see the work that my fellow, team members do is like being awesome on a day-to-day basis because they're really awesome on a day-to-day basis. So for that work to be recognized, it's it's just the greatest compliment, I think, and that it's worthy of recognition by sales and marketing leaders across the industry that have either stronger brands or not stronger brands or what have you. I think it's always the greatest compliment, and I never take that for granted. Like any kind of dialogue I have with the group with TMSA, I never take for granted because I always learn something. So I have it right here, actually. I have my award right on my desk. So
Awesome. I love that because especially your word traveled. I had it all places with me to then ship it to you. So
Well,
I'm
you
glad
did it safely, so the packaging side of me really appreciated that.
yes,
So that's
I'm
really
glad
great.
it made it to you safely. So I love hearing like how much that recognition means to you, and your commitment to TMSA has really been showcased this year because you did come on as our newest board member at TMSA. And for the people who don't know, how the path to get to the board of directors, yours has been a lot. You've done a lot for us. You have served in the education committee for many years. You've spoken at TMSA events. You are the subcommittee chairperson on our DEI task force. And so I'm curious kind of why did you put such a commitment into TMSA, and what has all those things, that journey been like from your perspective?
So when I was just starting out, like it's full circle in the beginning of the conversation, he continues to be my mentor today, but my one of my first managers, he was a big proponent of just sitting on local nonprofits, like on boards, and it was just something that was always encouraged as an out of work activity. Make sure you're active in the community, blah 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 blah. And so I did that. I got out of my comfort zone and sat in those meetings for different nonprofits. And it's really important. I think this is something I also encourage a lot of individuals, like especially the college age, to say is that get out of your comfort zone and maybe even out of the industry and see how the world works. And sitting at those tables with such a broad breadth of experience, like we had accountants, we had realtors, all these random people like mortgage brokers, and they all brought this crazy perspective. But I learned so much because business is business. Best in class marketing is best in class marketing. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. And so to have all of those different perspectives and different approaches to problem solving was really helpful early in my career. So when I joined, I was very obviously new to the industry, to supply chain and logistics, and also just wanting to like meet the new characters, right? The cast of characters. So I actually just got engaged through the events, and I loved all the events because they were probably the most collaborative. I've spent a whole career going to industry events, and you kind of always are just a participant, like you're there. You RSVP, you check that you're present, and that's it. But TMSA is unique in the fact that you're actively participating. Like you're encouraged to participate. People get you out of your shell, even if you're like, I don't know, I want to kind of stay by myself, in a very good way. And I knew immediately and it was just through conversations. It wasn't even like, do you want to be on the education committee? It was like, how do you handle this? Or I have some new employees who need to understand logistics. Are there any tools that they can use to kind of onboard faster? And so it kind of happened just organically. I think you kind of fall into committees at TMSA where it's just like, oh,
We find
suddenly you're in a meeting.
you.
What?
Said we find you, and we're like,
No, and it's a great way because it's so organic that it just feels natural to become a contributor because you're also a huge recipient. So it's a reciprocity for sure. So, and I think back to like how I was in the beginning, there's so many different unique experiences within TMSA, whether it's a partner member or a marketer or a salesperson or a newbie or a tenured person, that it's kind of fun to have these conversations because we were just on a meeting earlier this week where everybody had a different opinion on something, but it was healthy, it was constructive, and it was respectful, which I think is really important. And I just, I always feel like I'm not doing enough for TMSA because TMSA does so much for every organization. So that's kind of why I got involved and continue to stay involved, because I get way more out of it than anything I could give. It's selfish. It's selfish in a lot of ways.
it's selfish.
Well, full admission that I'm totally selfish.
I think that you do plenty for TMSA, and I feel like when I look, so one of my favorite things in my tenure at TMSA that I've been able to accomplish and we've been able to accomplish is that DEI task force, and being able to really think about how TMSA can be more equitable and inclusive itself, but also help our partner members. And I remember so specifically calling you as like a sounding board on this. So I have not been shy of saying that after I go to trade shows, I get massages. This is something that's part of my self-care. And so I was driving to my massage and I called you. I'm like, hey, Eileen, I have this concept of doing this DEI task forces committee because I look out and I think the industry is changing. And I really want to highlight that and make sure that we're doing what we can. And I've heard from people like, we want to do those things, but we don't even know where to begin. Is this something that could be of value to our members, to sales and marketing people? And I came to you with a very small, very specific idea. And you told me, and I don't even know if you remember this, but you said, think bigger. You are able to achieve more. This will matter and this will resonate. Like, open your brain to its full potential. So I don't even know if I was coming to you for a task force, actually, when I say that. I was just saying, like, is DEI important to members? And from that, then I was like, okay, Eileen believes in me. And so I'm able to take the lid off my brain of this smaller concept and be able to create something. And from there, we've launched the DEI task force. We've created a DEI, like, permanent diversity chairperson on our board of directors. We've been able to have a wellness room at Elevate. We've been able to, one of the best things at Elevate that people said is how inclusive they felt that we had both a cocktail and a mocktail that people could have, and really thinking through all of those things. And so for anyone that is supporting TMSA's DEI program, who cares about DEI, and that's where you're coming into TMSA, know that how big it's gotten, how big it will continue to grow is because Eileen Curran told me she believed in me to do something bigger when I called her on the way to a massage 2 years ago. And so
I think the best things happen when we're most relaxed. So
yeah. So, but that was like a really cool moment for me. And I think does speak to the camaraderie of the group, because you have to be vulnerable sometimes and be like, this is something I believe in, but is this something that other people will care about, and have those dialogues and then see if you can even go bigger. And so thank you for that.
Well, of course, of course. I love all those conversations anyway, because we pick each other's brains. And I think there are two things. One, the vulnerability is so important, and vulnerability in these conversations is essential. And that's really what the ask is, right? With this task force, it isn't so much having all the answers. It isn't doing everything right. It isn't being so far along the path that you're the expert. It's, we're vulnerable, we're learning. Every time we have one of those task force calls, there's always an introspective moment where I was like, oh, I made that mistake. Or I said something that might have put somebody off. And it's not about being overtly sensitive. It's just being aware that we're all part of this ecosystem and we all want to make everybody feel welcome and safe, right? And I think when it comes to when you said you had this idea, would anybody else, isn't that the truest sense of like a marketing or a sales complaint, right? Like if one customer's saying it, multiple customers have that experience, they're just not speaking up. So if you had that thought, other people have that thought, they're just not speaking up. And to have that space, and I think it's a testament to TMSA's leadership too, to say, okay, this is how we've done it. This is something new. This is something that can be tricky in a lot of ways, right? It's a very sensitive topic, but it shouldn't be. It's just a sensitive label. The topic is something I think we all as humans try to be. We try to be kind and try to be open and supportive. But I think just those kinds of actions where it's like, this is what we've always done. Can we change it? Can we do something different that might actually make not only the organization better, but other organizations better, is an important one. And I applaud you for taking that step, because it wasn't easy. You were an advocate for advocates. So
I tried to be and still strive to be. And yes, no one is getting it perfect. And what I love most about the task force is that it's not about box checking, but about moving forward in the sheer diversity of different types of people in the task force. It's not just like, okay, we need, different ethnicities. We need different sexual orientations. We need neurodivergent. We have all those things in there, but it's not like we're fielding for those people. It's like, oh, is this something that you care about? We love that. And we love that we have all those different perspectives, and that's what is able to move us forward. And I think that's important in all categories across the board, just having different perspectives, different viewpoints. In that meeting that you referenced earlier, I said that we should be questioning what we're doing and seeing if we're moving forward in the right way or in a different way, or if it makes sense. And you should voice your opinion on that, because that's the only way we're going to move forward in the best way, is if we are collaborating moving forward.
Absolutely. So That's been a great experience to be part of. Just as a person, like I've learned so much.
I love that. So as we round out the year 2024 and heading into 2025, is there anything that has really surprised you in transportation and logistics? What should we anticipate heading into the next year?
Well, there's really nothing about 2024 that didn't surprise me. I think around every turn there was a nice surprise. But what I take away from the year and looking forward is that it's easy to get lost in the noise and the trends, right? Like we all have the micro and macro views of things, but it's also easy to forget what got us all here in the first place. And that's customers looking for help to make their businesses run, right? That's the end of it. That's like, take all the trends out of it. At the end of the day, it's really about the customers and what they need every day. We're not monitoring trends to be the first in the market. We should be monitoring the data and the trends to be first to help our customers to get to where they need to be in the market. And then it comes full circle. So, of course, there are operational efficiencies to be had. There's a ton of low-hanging fruit in our industry to make pretty quick progress when it comes to technology. So I think that that's going to happen in 2025 fairly quickly. I think the first quarter especially. But if the customer isn't at the center of every one of those conversations, we have no value as sales and marketers. So that's really important. And so ultimately our job, especially going into the new year with technology advances, is to insert them into every conversation and pitch we have. It's not about how we grow our business. It's how helping our customers grow their businesses help us grow. And I think that that's really important. And I'm not saying like everybody's forgetting about the customer, but it becomes almost like taken for granted, like it's unsaid, but it should be said in every conversation. It should be brought up. Like, what value does this bring to the customer?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of my favorite things when I was the director of marketing to say to my leader was like, what is the purpose of this? When nicely most of the time, but like, how does this idea match with our business goals? How does it actually help our customers? And what is the priority level of the other things that we're doing? And I feel like sometimes we have such great ideas, or we think we do, and we get so excited about them, but it's like, yes, we have to, at the end of the day, come back to that. How is this actually helping our customers? How is this meeting our business goals? And if you don't know the answers to those, then it might not be as great of an idea as you think it is, or it needs to be developed more to then add those layers to it.
Exactly. And priorities are really important for these small marketing groups and sales groups. Like you have to have priorities or else everything's a priority and then everything falls apart, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, so by instantly saying the customer's the priority, it makes a lot of other decisions a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Absolutely.
really, really important.
And you mentioned that there are some like tech optimization efficiencies. Anything in particular that you really think that people should be on the lookout for or
Well, I think
invest
the biggest thing going back to the customers and the business model is like as partners in our organizations is to really align with your IT teams, with your CIOs and your CISOs, because you're going to not only help market what your tech stack is externally, but you're also going to understand, opportunities that are a little bit ahead of what comes to market. So I think it'll be really important to work with them. And as a marketer, also align with them to get as much native data out of your business as possible to help make informed business decisions. So that'll be really important. I think that should be a priority in any group. Also reaching out to industry experts. We do kind of, they're the true analysts of trends, right? And they have such reinforced value. They often speak at TMSA events. So the combination of leveraging them with the data that's already available, there's a lot of people out there that have a ton of like spreadsheets, or maybe not spreadsheets, maybe like something more dynamic than that, maybe Tableau tables and all that good stuff. But what's locked up in some of these individuals' brains, that institutional knowledge is so incredibly valuable that look at the data, have the conversations, and then apply it to your business to really optimize that. I think those, and then as a sales tool, I think project management tools are everything. I think you need that. We talk about it a lot. I think
Yeah.
gone are the days of checklists and to-do lists. There's way too many things flying around. So there's a lot of really good opportunities to integrate those into your tech stack as well.
Absolutely. Okay, we're at my last and favorite question. And that is, if you could go back in time and advise a younger Eileen anything, personally or professionally, when would you go back to and what would you tell her?
Well, the younger Eileen probably could do with like a few weeks of re-education because I have a lot of things I would tell her. But the main thing I would say, and it goes back to an earlier comment you made, is to trust and always bet on yourself. Always. Because if you're not your own biggest advocate, nobody else can be. So you really have to trust yourself and trust your gut. And not to say you can't have any levels of discomfort, but just always know that you know what's best for yourself.
I love that. It's a great thing. I write today, I'm like, younger Jen should drink more water because I feel like it's important. I know current Jen is much better. It's because these gigantic cups didn't
But we
exist.
never had water when we were kids. I see those memes all the time. And it's like, I think I had like 3 sips over a decade. And
Yeah.
now I'm like massively dehydrated by 10 a.m. after a gallon.
Yeah, we should
Happening?
all have drank more water. I think it's a good life tip. So if you're
It is a good
watching,
life tip. But
most
again, like I said, there's a whole lot of lessons that younger
yes,
Eileen could be well served by. But I wouldn't know they were lessons if I didn't experience them. And I
that's
think if
true.
I had just said to trust and always bet on myself, I don't think the butterfly effect would be that impactful. I just think I would have diminished a lot of internal narrative that was probably toxic.
Absolutely. I think that's good advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and, of course, for being such an integral part of TMSA and coming on our board. If you are watching and you're interested in getting involved in TMSA, we have a host of committees. I know we talked about education and DEI here. We also have a membership committee, marketing committees, recognition committees, all kinds of things that you can get involved. And even more exciting, we have registration open for Elevate next year. We're going to Austin, Texas, June 8th through 10th, 2025. So you can go ahead and grab your tickets today. It's the early bird pricing. So it is the most cost-effective measure or time that you will have to register for Elevate. So we hope to see you there. And thank you so much, Eileen, for coming on the show today and for all that you do for TMSA. Thank you.
Thanks so much.